Long ago there lived a man who knew many secrets. He lived in Egypt's sacred city of Memphis, and he was a priest of the goddess Isis. He had spent 23 years down in the tombs and the catacombs beneath the city. During his underground life, he had learned many spells and magical rituals. When he emerged from his long period of study, people soon understood that he was a master of the mysterious arts. Now this famous sorcerer had a magical helper. It was an ordinary room, which he dressed in clothes. It spent most of the time propped up in the corner of his kitchen. But when he needed it, he simply muttered a secret charm, and it suddenly became alive. The broom walked about on two legs and grew arms to perform tasks. When he had no further use for the magical helper, the sorcerer would snap his fingers, and the helpful broom would go back into the corner and turn it back into an ordinary stick. As you can imagine, the magical broom was a trick that impressed almost everyone. It was indeed extremely useful, but not much company for its master. The sorcerer lacked human compassion. He did not marry, and as he grew old, he began to fret that his secrets would die with him. He decided to look for a young apprentice. His friend the schoolmaster told him of a bright young boy who was looking for a career that would take him far. When the boy left school, he became the sorcerer's apprentice. He promised to teach the boy all his secrets in as short time as 10 years. Meanwhile, the boy should be his helper. There was plenty of work to do for him, including collecting ingredients from the fields and river banks, and mixing potions in the house. In this way, he became familiar with many of the strange contents of magical preparations. He learned how to measure the parts exactly, heat them up, and mix them. But during all this practice, the sorcerer always held back on him. He never taught him the secret words. The reason why he did this was because of his anxiety disorder, keeping him from teaching the boy the magical words that would bring his spells to life. Each time he tried, he would get nauseous and a really bad migraine. The apprentice would then have to draw him a bath. The actual spells he promised would be revealed in the 10th and final year of his apprenticeship. The boy was fascinated by his work and study, but he longed to learn to try out some of the magic for himself. Eventually, he came up with a plan. One night, instead of going to bed, he hid in a cupboard in the kitchen. He heard the sorcerer come in and speak to the broom. "Come on now, broom, and stand to attention. Listen carefully to the task I mentioned. Your first job tonight is to clean the floor, but hold on 1 minute, for there is one more. I fancy a rest in a nice hot tub. Heat a bath while the floor you scrub. That's it for now. You've heard my spell. Hurry up and do it all well." When the boy in his hiding place heard these words, he thought, "Is that it? Is that all that he has been keeping from me?" But little did the boy know that he heard it wrong. His temporal lobe was damaged. This caused him to have a learning disability. So this learning disability made him have a very small, short-term memory limited capacity. He heard the broom work, sweeping up, fetching water, and scrubbing the floor. All the while the boy sat silently. Eventually, when the bath was ready, the sorcerer went to soak his old limbs. The apprentice slipped out of the cupboard and off to bed. He could not sleep, for he was thinking to himself, "A young boy can say a few verses just as well as an old fraud, no matter how rich and famous he may be." A few days later, the sorcerer had to go because he was meeting with Isis. Even though she was a goddess, she was also a cognitive psychologist, and she was helping the sorcerer out with his bipolar disorder. The goddess was attempting to aid the sorcerer by dismantling his defense mechanisms, all the while simultaneously having the sorcerer come to terms with his denial of his current condition. They were trying to work on taking down his defense mechanisms and stopping his denial of his condition. Each week he would go and she would use conditioning to stop his denial and get over his anxiety. The sorcerer's frontal lobe was damaged, and that is what was causing his bipolar disorder. Before he left, he gave the apprentice instructions to make sure that everything was spick and span. The boy had a lack of motivation and thought his intrinsic motivation was to become a great sorcerer. He thought to himself, "I certainly will do my duties, but I shall use some simple magic to help me." When the old man was safely gone, the apprentice went into the kitchen to give his orders to the broom. He spoke the words that he had thought he heard, immediately stood to attention, and set to work. Soon it was marching around the house, fetching and heating water, filling the bath, and scrubbing the floor. If anything, it worked even faster and harder than usual. The boy was delighted, but little did he know the broom had dissociative identity disorder, a multiple personality disorder. This disorder affects the orbital frontal cortex. "So this is how it feels to be a sorcerer," he chuckled to himself. "Nothing in life is hard when you know the secret. Of course, when I am rich and famous, I too will make a big mystery of my art. I will be sure to tell everyone how long I have studied to get where I am. If everyone knew how easy it would be to do magic, they all would be at it." He went to the bathroom to enjoy the tub that he had been prepared for by the broom. It was already too full, and the water was starting to trickle over the side. The broom came in and threw another bucket into the bath. Now the water was gushing. "Stop!" commanded the boy. "Can't you see that you are causing a flood?" But the broom took no notice and rushed out to fetch more water at an alarming speed. The boy followed after it, frantically trying to speak in verse. "Hey, you broom! There's no need to run. You can stop now that your work is done. Oh dear, that doesn't seem to do the trick. How about this? Stop, stop, stop. It's time to quit. What rhymes with quit? Ah, yes. I don't like what you're doing. No, I don't. Not one bit. No, doesn't work. Oh, just stop, please. I'm on my knees. See me beg on one leg. Ah, this rhyming thing is ridiculous. Can't you obey my orders, broom?" But the broom was already emptying water willy-nilly and not even bothering to aim for the bath. The flood was running down the stairs. The boy was more vexed than ever. "If you don't stop, I'll get an axe. That's what I'll do. You'll see." That threat caused the broom's disorder to come alive, and soon he split into two. When the boy saw this, he prayed. He wished that the sorcerer would come home to help him. A minute or two after he made this prayer, the sorcerer appeared with Isis in the room, as if by magic. Well, to tell you the truth, it probably wasn't magic, but the boy was so far too exhausted and confused to be sure what exactly happened. The master of the enchanted merrily snapped his fingers, and the two brooms stopped and stood to attention. "Now, without any more distress, set to work and clean up this mess," he commanded. The two brooms did as they were told. Isis told the apprentice about the broom's condition. Then she turned towards the sorcerer. She told him some ways to get the boy to do his chores and to stay out of trouble. She suggested using operant conditioning. If he were to use operant conditioning, then he could apply positive reinforcement. He could control the apprentice and teach him magic. Each time the apprentice does chores correctly, the sorcerer will teach him a bit more magic. She also told him that the only way to gain control over his condition was to keep going to therapy and take the medicine she prescribed to him. It looked so simple and easy, but the apprentice now knew that the work of a master of his craft is far from easy. It takes years of practice to do something correctly. One should always respect learning and experience, and one should never meddle in something that they do not understand. The sorcerer did not punish his apprentice because he knew that this was one lesson he had learned well.